You live in the information age. Every day, your mind is bombarded by a tsunami of data, news, emails, articles, videos, social media posts. You consume and consume and consume, hoping to become smarter, more competent, more up-to-date. But at the end of the day, what actually sticks? Do you feel that familiar frustration? The sense that your brain is a sieve where important information slips away along with the trivial. You study for an exam and forget the content within a week. You read a book and a month later, you can barely recall the main idea. Our culture's answer to this problem is always the same. Try harder. Use more note-taking apps. Create more mind maps. The solution is always to add more, memorize more, retain more. What if I told you that this entire approach is fundamentally flawed? What if the secret to learning faster and retaining what truly matters lies not in your ability to memorize, but in your ability to forget? It sounds like a paradox, a contradiction, but it is one of the most profound and misunderstood truths about how the human brain works. There is a hidden mechanism, a biological law that governs memory, and it's called the law of intentional forgetting. In the next few minutes, we are going to challenge everything you've learned about learning. We will decode how the act of actively pruning your memories can counterintuitively strengthen your knowledge. I will give you a practical protocol to become not an information hoarder, but an architect of your own intellect. Stay with me, because you are about to discover that to build a memory of steel, the first step is to master the art of demolition. To understand why forgetting is so crucial, we need to abandon the metaphor of the brain as a computer. Your brain is not a hard drive that stores files in neat folders. If it were, it would have run out of space a long time ago. A much more accurate analogy is that of a garden. Imagine that every piece of information you learn is a seed planted in this garden. Every time you revisit that information, you water it. The neural connections, the synapses, are the roots that grow from these seeds. Now, what does a master gardener do to ensure the strongest, most valuable plants, the fruit trees, the most beautiful flowers, grow healthy and robust? He doesn't just water everything indiscriminately. He prunes. He pulls out the weeds. He removes the weak branches and diseased leaves that are stealing precious resources, sunlight, water, nutrients, from the plants he actually wants to cultivate. Forgetting is the brain's process of neurological pruning. This process, scientifically known as synaptic pruning, is a fundamental mechanism the brain uses, especially during childhood and adolescence, but it continues throughout our entire lives. The brain understands that maintaining every single neural connection ever created is energetically unsustainable. It would be like a city that never turns off a single light bulb. The energy consumption would be catastrophic. So, it follows a brutally efficient principle: use it or lose it. The neural connections that are frequently activated, the information you revisit and apply, are strengthened. The strengthening is a process called long-term potentiation, LTP. The synapses become more efficient, communication gets faster, the roots deepen. Meanwhile, the connections that are rarely used, the name of the actor in that movie you saw 6 months ago, the trivial detail from yesterday's news, weaken and are eventually dismantled. The brain recycles these resources to strengthen the pathways that matter. The problem in the information age is that we are constantly throwing weed seeds into our garden. The endless scrolling, the notifications, the passive consumption of trivial content, all of this creates weak, temporary connections. These connections, even if weak, compete for metabolic resources. They create noise in the system, making it harder for the brain to identify and nurture valuable information. Your feeling of brain fog and your difficulty remembering what's important is not a memory failure. It's the symptom of an overcrowded garden that lacks a gardener's care. The law of intentional forgetting is our conscious intervention in this process. It's when we, as the gardener, pick up the pruning shears and actively decide which weeds to remove so that our trees of knowledge can flourish. So how do we apply this in practice? How do we become this active gardener of our own mind? The answer lies in a three-step system I call the Synaptic Pruning Protocol. It transforms learning from a passive act of accumulation into an active process of curation. Step 1. Broad and temporary capture, the greenhouse. The first step isn't to stop consuming information. That would be impossible. Instead, we change the intention of the capture. Treat all new information as if it's entering a temporary greenhouse, not your main garden. Use a single place to capture everything, a notes app, a notebook, whatever works for you. During the day, when you come across an interesting article, a podcast idea, a quote from a book, simply throw it into this location. Don't worry about organizing, categorizing, or memorizing anything. Just capture. The mindset is here that of a gold prospector who collects a bucket of gravel from the river. He knows most of it is just rock, but he needs to gather everything to find the gold nuggets. Your notes greenhouse is your bucket of gravel. This relieves the pressure of having to remember everything immediately. You give your brain permission to let go of this new information because you know it's safe in an external system. Step 2. The relevance filter, the prospector's sieve. This is the most crucial step and the one most people never do. Once a day or once every couple of days, set aside 15 to 20 minutes to process your greenhouse. This is the moment you pick up your sieve. For every item you captured, ask yourself 3 filter questions. Is this genuinely interesting or just new? Our brain loves novelty, but novelty rarely translates into lasting knowledge. Does this connect to something I already know or a goal that I have? The strongest knowledge is that which connects to an existing neural network. Can I see a practical application for this in my life or work within the next week? Application is the most potent way to water a seed. If the answer is no to all or most of these questions, the information is a weed. It's gravel, and it must be discarded. If the answer is yes, the information is a gold nugget. It has survived the filter and is ready to be planted in your main garden, your long-term knowledge system, your second brain. This is where you rewrite it in your own words, connect it with other ideas, and solidify it. Step 3. The ceremonial deletion, burning the weeds. This step sounds strange, but it's psychologically powerful. For every piece of information that didn't pass the filter, you must actively discard it. Don't just leave it in a read later folder that will never be opened. Delete the note. Cross out the item in your notebook. This physical act of deletion is a signal to your brain. You are saying, this information is not important. You have permission to forget it. Release the resources you are allocating to hold this in short-term memory. You are intentionally accelerating the natural process of synaptic pruning. By doing this regularly, you train your brain to become better at distinguishing the signal from the noise in real time. You are clearing the garden, freeing up nutrients and mental space so that the information that truly matters can grow deep, lasting roots. This concept that the brain strengthens through difficulty and selection isn't just a nice metaphor. It's backed by decades of research in cognitive psychology encapsulated in a principle called desirable difficulty. Scientists like Robert Bjork at UCLA have shown that learning conditions that feel easy and fast in the short term, like rereading a text multiple times, are actually the least effective for long-term retention. In contrast, strategies that introduce a certain amount of difficulty, forcing the brain to work harder to retrieve or connect information, are the ones that create the most robust memories. The act of filtering and deciding what to forget is a form of desirable difficulty. You are forcing your brain to make a value judgment, a higher-order cognitive process that strengthens the connections to the information you decide to keep. Forgetting in this context is not a failure. It is the mechanism that creates the space and the need for active recall, which is the true engine of memory. By clearing out the trivial, you force your brain to work harder to remember the essential. And it's in that effort that true learning happens. We live in fear of forgetting, the fear of losing an idea, a fact, a detail, and this fear has turned us into digital hoarders with minds that resemble a dusty attic, filled with things we once thought might be useful. The law of intentional forgetting offers us liberation. It teaches us that mental clarity doesn't come from adding more, but from subtracting with wisdom. True knowledge is not an ocean of shallow information, but a deep well of connected insights. You don't need a better memory, you need a better filter. You don't need more apps, you need a more disciplined pruning process. By adopting the Synaptic Pruning Protocol, you stop being a victim of the information fire hose and become the curator of your mental world. You actively decide what deserves the most precious resource you have, your cognitive space. And here is my challenge to you. Tomorrow, apply just step 2 of the protocol. At the end of your day, take 15 minutes and look at the information you consumed: articles, videos, conversations. Pick up your sieve and apply the relevance filter. Then come back to this video and comment below with the most interesting or surprising piece of information that did not pass your filter. The information you realized was just gravel and that you are now going to intentionally forget. By sharing what you are pruning, we create a collective garden of clarity. Remember, a powerful intellect is not measured by what it contains, but by the quality of what it cultivates. Be the gardener.